Hey guys, welcome back to another project. What you're looking at here is the F4F Wildcat from Academy Models. It's in 1/72 scale. It's a neat little kit. I'm not going to say it's the greatest of kits, but then again, I don't know. I have nothing to compare it with. I don't know what other Wildcat kits are out there, specifically in 1/72 scale. But it's really not a bad kit. It's recessed panel lines. It's got some nice detail to it. The problem that I have with it is very fiddly kit, especially when it comes to the undercarriage. But it's a cool little model. I built this on a whim. Like those that follow usually know that when I build models, I usually like a theme. Something from usually TV or the movies or something like that is usually what I go for. I rarely build something just to build the subject. I usually get a drive out of knowing the subjects from a movie or something like that. But I had this little kit for a while, sitting on the shelf, and I decided to build it one day, and it was a quick little thing. It wasn't anything that took a lot of time. I didn't over-engineer it like I normally do, overthink it. But I had to do something different, and that was really, I think, the drive behind this was to build it as something different. And as you notice, it's in the Atlantic theme, the gray over white, where most of them were either all that medium gray or medium blue. I don't know if they ever made the tricolor from the Pacific, but they were always, from the Pacific Theater, and that's what most people represent when they build. But I chose the not often seen, at least in my opinion, Atlantic theme. Because it looks pretty cool. And if you didn't know, back in the day, these actually did fly in the Atlantic, and they were used for coastal watch, submarine hunting and stuff like that, all the way up and down the coast during World War II. So they're pretty cool planes. But this is my representation of it. It went together very well. You see, it did some wash and weathering. I was particularly proud of how the exhaust comes up over, follows the flow of the airflow over the wing and everything. That's pretty cool. But when I built this, I just built the plane, and it had been sitting on my shelf, a little forlorn, for several years now. And I just kept looking at it, kept catching my eye, and I was like, I had to do something different with it. So I decided to give it a refresh. So we dusted it off, and decided that probably the easiest thing to do is just to give it a base so it has a little bit more pizzazz to it. So here's what we did is I took the base. So here's what I did to try to give it a base. I had these wood bases. I picked these up from Hobby Lobby every now and then. In their woodworking section. They're very cheap, maybe $1, definitely under $3, I guess, to get these little plaque frames. So I just took it, painted it all black, to give it that kind of museum type look to it. And then for the carrier deck, I decided I wanted to represent a carrier deck from that time period. And to make the carrier deck, zoom in a little bit here. Maybe you can see the planks in it and everything. What I did for that, again from Hobby Lobby, but you can probably get it from any store, craft store, is I went out and I bought these Silly Winks foam. Okay, this is only like 1 millimeter, I believe. It's a 12 by 18 inch sheet, and it's 89 cents. This stuff is really cheap. But the neat thing about it is it's very flexible, and it allows you to do a lot of things. And that's what I did here. Because I was thinking, how can I make a carrier deck? And I was thinking with, maybe getting popsicle sticks or stir sticks from like Starbucks or something like that, and cutting them down, painting them, and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, it's just too much work to do. So while the stir sticks, again, are free, just grab them by the handful as you're walking out the door. Not a big deal. Or even when you order like a box of coffee or like a bunch of coffee, they'll just throw it in there. But anyway, it was just too much work to do all the painting, cutting, and all that stuff, and cutting it and gluing it down. So what I did is I took the foam and measured out what I thought would be the appropriate length of the woodwork on the deck, the teak deck at the time, right? I think they used teak. I could be wrong. Maybe it was mahogany. But anyway, to make that, we just measured it out, and I just scored with the tip of my knife, a very sharp blade, and I just scored the very top of the foam, not going completely through. All right, once I got the grid down using my heat gun, and you could use a hairdryer too, but I have a heat gun that I use. My hair's falling out, so I don't really use a hairdryer at all. On a low setting, take it and wave it over top of the foam, and what that does is it seals the foam. It sucks all the pores together, which is good for painting, because if you don't do that, it's just going to suck the paint up when you put it on, and it leaves it blotchy because it's not going to be uniform. Okay, but the other thing it does is it tightens the foam. All of a sudden it makes all these panel lines just pop. Okay, which gives it a really, really cool effect. All right, once I had that done, then I went back online and I was looking at carrier decks from the period, and they had this bluish, they weren't wood color, or at least not all of them, they had this bluish greenish color to them. I thought it was very cool and very unique, so that's what I tried to represent here using craft acrylics. I did some mixes and stuff like that, and we painted it and layered it and stuff like that until we came up with this. And to add a little bit more depth to it, we added the deck striping that I found, again trying to mimic a piece of flight deck from the time period. And that's how we got our flight deck. And I just took some acrylic rod, put it through the center of the base, stuffed it up the butt of the aircraft, plopped it on there, and lo and behold, we have our F4 Wildcat coming in for a landing. Or depending on your perception, she could be taking off, I don't know. But it's pretty cool. I'm very happy with it. It just adds a little bit more interest to the build itself. It doesn't take up a lot more space on my shelf than the aircraft itself does because of the wingspan. So it's not gonna, cause me grief down the road with space issues. But that's pretty cool. For those that are wondering, for the plop for the prop blur, I just took a piece of clear acrylic. I think it was from the tip of the top of a Chinese takeout container, using a compass, X-Acto compass scribe that I have. I was able to cut out the diameter, matching it to what the real prop was. Once it was cut out, I just sanded it in a circular motion to get the swirls in the right direction, and so you could still see through it, which is just like the real thing, I feel. And then glued that in place of the prop. I've tried in the past to put the yellow edging on it, but it just never looked right to me. Just a slight yellow blur. But like I said, it never looked right, so I just omitted that from it. But otherwise, it gives the impression of it's in flight, so that's cool. But yeah, that's the Academy F4F Wildcat in flight over the carrier deck, going off to hunt some German U-boats. So, thank you for your time. I appreciate you watching my video, this silly little channel of mine. And until next time, guys, be strong.